We're going to adjust the volume and go back. I'd like to start by asking if there are any guests today. And if you are hosting a guest, stand up and introduce us, please. Anyone bring a guest today? I think this is the first guestless meeting I've seen in a long time. All right, fine basket. If you hate Duke, put in some money to pay what might be amount. I'm not putting any money in. You ready? Oh, look! Whoa, the money's coming in. So, I want to invite Brian, my namesake, Brian Kiva. I'm Brian Kelly. And he's going to give us the invocation, please. We'll sing.
All right, bow your heads, please. So, today we're going to give thanks. And what I'd like to do is give special thanks today, tomorrow, and always for this community we have here of fellow Rotarians. I think we're incredibly privileged and fortunate to be surrounded by a group of people like we are here, and each one of you, to me, is an extraordinary special person. And I constantly give thanks for that. I want to give special thanks to our speaker today, Bill. I hope he's going to be educating us well. and also for the team of people here who every week get a room ready for us, prepare our meals, and we really appreciate that and much more. So, we're grateful for all that and more. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, very good. So I'm a little jet lagged. I just got back from Santa Fe last night at 10. That was, it's 2 hours, 8 o'clock. But then when you get up, I woke up at 8:45, and of course it was 6:45 in my body. So I didn't realize there was some jet lag. But I wanted, I wanted to pluck a segue out of this invocation, and I just couldn't. So I'm just going to do a non sequitur about this Irish bachelor agnostic. And he was a lover of animals and dogs, and his dog passed away. This takes place in Dublin. And he's so sad, and he thinks that the only way he can get over his grief is to have a service, a memorial service for his dog. So he walks towards the church, and he sees a priest sweeping the steps, and he says, Father, you know I'm not a church-going man, but I've lost my best beast of 15 years. Do you think you do a memorial service for my dog? Son, it's quite clear you're not a church-going man. We're only interested in the human soul. But if you go down 3 blocks, you'll find a Unitarian church. And they'll do just about anything. So he said, okay, Father. Again, I tell you, I'm not a church-going man. I don't know the ways of the church. But do you think if I go down there and give them 10,000 euros be a good donation, do you think that'd be proper? Oh, yes, it would be, but I didn't know that your dog was Catholic. This reminds me of one other one. The bachelor actually had a sister who was a widow, 8 children, can hardly make ends meet. It's a tough life. But she started noticing that her oldest daughter started wearing fancy dresses, furs, jewelry, and nice shoes. And she said, Caitlin, where are you getting all that fancy stuff? I'm starting to suspect you a little bit. What's going on? She said, Mama, I'm a prostitute. What? Say that again? I'm a prostitute. Oh, thank God. I thought you said you were a Protestant. All right. I want to tell you a little bit about this won't be much longer, it's going to be very short. But can you help me put that up? Thank you, Brian. I had a wonderful, anyone been to New Mexico?
Yeah.
Fabulous state, fabulous landscape, a rich history. The oldest church in the United States is in downtown Santa Fe. You say, how can that be? There's St. Augustine. Well, we forget that St. Augustine was burned to the ground during the Civil War. Let me get in here. So there are all kinds of things that my wife and I enjoy, but there are more PhDs per capita in New Mexico. I didn't say that. Whose phone's gone off?
Karen.
Oh my God.
Okay.
All right, Karen.
Increase the time. This is what the spine basket was really meant for.
Well, anyway, so my wife and I had a wonderful time. We were there 2 weeks, and among the things we did, we took a bike trip, an electronic bike, and the guy was a historian. And so it's all these incredible stories about Santa Fe was the only instance of where the Spanish were driven out. and they were actually the Pueblo Indians threw them out, and they left. They didn't come back until about a decade later. But the thing that impressed me the most was the Battle of Glorieta Pass. Now, I know you're talking there and pointing. He's pointing. So he's over there. You're pointing.
We were saying,
All right.
we should know how to pass this thing around, the contacts around like
I have to
that.
deal with students who talk too. So where was it before I was so rudely interrupted? The famous Glorieta Pass, known as the Gettysburg of the West. We forget about it. We forget that the Civil War was also fought in the West. And it was in the West that the South really believed that they could take over territory. It was a group of Confederates in Texas, and they went across the border to New Mexico, and there they were going to take over the West. And they had a huge pile of booty, of money, gold, silver, food supplies, ammunition. It was hidden in Glorieta Pass. And it was with all this stuff, this huge hidden supply train, they were going to defeat the Northerners and take over the West. And this battle could easily have been won by the South, were it not for a young Native American scout who saw this supply train and told the Northern Army about it. And then they destroyed the supplies. And that was the end of the battle. But what I decided to do as an experiment, given that we're looking at AI, I put in search the Battle of Glorieta Pass. I put it in AI. Right? You ever tried to do that?
Yeah.
You ever done yourself? They had me. I put in my own name, and they had me getting my PhD from Yale. I went to the rival university. Anyway, so I just put in Glorieta Pass, and this is what AI came up with. The American Civil War stands as one of the most significant events in the nation's history, shaping its course and influencing the nation's future. While the Eastern theater of war often garners the most attention, the Western theater played a crucial role in determining the ultimate outcome. Among the notable engagements in the Western theater was the Battle of Glorieta Pass. It was fought between March 26 and 28 in 1862 and took place in New Mexico Territory, an area that held strategic importance due to its location along key supply routes and its potential influence the control over the entire Southwest. Now, the Confederacy, seeking to extend its influence westward, aimed to capture the southwestern territories and gain access to the resources and support that they offered. Had the Confederacy succeeded in this endeavor, the balance of power in the West might have shifted decisively in their favor, altering the outcome of the entire war. That is all by pushing the button. And you try it, you get all kinds of things. I'm writing a new book, and I've already finished my first chapter.
Thank you very much.
To that is the War of Northern Aggression. Just remember that. Yes, Mr. Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Sergeant at Arms, chairperson.
Chair.
As chairperson, I request, let my people go.
I did, for 1 minute over. Just a quick couple things here. Want to call on Tim Smith. He's got a few updates about our largest charity, service project we do.
Yes, we are excited. We're going Monday for setup and Tuesday for go time. We've got the supplies, we've got the volunteers. We had 107 slots available, 99 are filled, over 40 from this club alone. So please give yourself a round of applause. Not too late to volunteer if you'd like. The sign-up sheet is out there, and it's not too late to donate either. Thank you all.
Kim,
Yes.
Kim,
What if we can't use the whole 3 hours?
Come for what you can.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Come be part of the fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
And for you other 114 that didn't sign up, what's wrong with you? Joe Jenkins, I think you want to have a couple of things about our family house dinner.
Yeah, I see Bob Woodruff's here.
That's okay. This is a good virtue.
Yeah, Bob says Bob's here. I will share that last night, finally, the family house filled up just about every room. 72 rooms were filled. And there were people from the Virgin Islands, Alaska, Arizona, New York. I asked them all, what are you doing here? I mean, in some they were supporting family members. The people from New York said, look, they don't do what you're doing here at UNC Chapel Hill, where we're from. And so, in the Virgin Islands, people said the same thing. Said, you are doing things here that other people are not. So we had an incredible group of volunteers there last night. You can't thank them enough because those people appreciate it so much. The only problem with the volunteers is we're all old. So we are working on our under 60 crowd. That one involved. But we're working on it. And so I just wanted to fill you in. After all this time, for some reason, Bob and I talked about this last week while I was in Disney with Mickey Mouse and Minnie, that they haven't used those rooms. So it was fascinating last night, and a woman came up to Penny and said, are you the one that did the chicken casserole? Said it's the best chicken casserole she had ever eaten. Now, I hate to tell you what Penny said. She said, if you knew what was in it, you wouldn't eat it. Didn't you? That's exactly what she said. So, and another woman came up and said, I said, I saw you last month. She said, yes, you did. I told my doctor the only days that I had to be here were on the third Thursday. There you go. I know it's going to happen, Bob, but quick rebuttal.
One minute. I've only known one Rotarian who was kicked out of Rotary down in Honduras who was engaged in unethical practices even with fellow Rotarians. But there are certain things like spying that are punishable by death in the United States. But the East Chapel Hill Rotary Club uses very colorful aprons that for our servers. And last Wednesday, there was a new person there that I didn't recognize. They were asking questions, writing notes down, trying to find out why you're so good. And I suspected it might be Joe Jenkins, who makes snide remarks about our team all the time. And I just sit and take it quietly. Well, I noticed that the person had a green apron on, but there was something sticking out underneath that apron. And you have to have proof to convict people of things like spying. But underneath that apron was another apron, which was a Rotary apron. So Joe, you're caught.
And on that happy note, I'm going to get Jennifer Blair to come up and introduce our speaker who's going to tell us all about artificial intelligence.
All right, thank you. So you have Bill Harper's bio in front of you. He has worked with all sorts of companies at marketing, communications, big companies, small companies. I had the pleasure of working with Bill a number of years ago when Habitat was starting our Weavers Grove neighborhood, which some of you have heard about, who helped with our website and branding and also helped us with a little communication with the neighbors. I'll leave it at that.
That was a fun night.
That was fun. That's a topic for another day. So we are so happy to have Bill here today to talk to us about artificial intelligence. If we have time, we may actually get to plug something in and see how that works if you haven't done it before. But I'll tell you, I quickly, at the table, write a warning about artificial intelligence and haiku form. And I got back, AI's power grows, used with care, for it bestows unintended throws. With that, welcome up Bill Harper.
My father was a disc jockey and was behind the mic most of his life. I, on the other hand, was a theater person and was on the stage all of mine. Whenever the red light would go on at my father's radio station, I would freeze. And anytime Dad had to stand in front of an audience, he would freeze. And so the two of us made quite the couple going anywhere, because he could only speak in a room where he couldn't see anybody, and I could only speak in a room where I could. So when the pandemic came along and suddenly I had to speak on Zoom calls, I was caught in a very weird thing that lasted about 6 months. So it's really nice to be back in front of people again. Can everybody hear me? Because if it's possible for me to avoid the microphone due to a lifetime of fear and neglect around them, I will choose to avoid them if I can. Is everybody doing okay? Very good. Oh, AI. All right, where to begin? First off, I want to say, as it says, AI is coming, so be sure to duck, because it's coming whether you like it or not. In fact, it's already here, and if you didn't think that it was, that just means you didn't know. But it's already here, and it's already woven itself into just about every aspect of things, and it's coming like a freight train, and like a freight train we've never seen before. So the clay isn't just wet. I'm not sure it's all the way through clay. It's a really, really interesting thing. Just out of curiosity real quickly, who has used or played with some form of AI? Okay, good. I'm surprised to see so few that, or so many rather, who have not yet. We're going to fix that today. Nothing to be worried about. We'll get around to it. So I saw that you had used it, Brian, for doing a quick bit of research, and we've got a haiku out of it. Anybody else use it in a different way? Yes, sir.
Image generation?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Do you use Midjourney?
I don't know the name of the program. It was with a colleague of mine.
That's kind of the one with the big shoulders right now is Midjourney. Yes, sir. Alexa, okay. Yeah, every day, all day.
Building a marketing plan and go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they never rolled their eyes. That's the thing that's amazing. All right. So today I want to try. Yes, sir.
Is it possible we're using it without knowing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's being used around for all the time. And again, freight train. Like as we speak, it's more and more and more just during this conversation. So today, what I don't want to do is what I found when I began to do a little bit of research, which was, let me tell you all the history of AI. You can go look that nonsense up on your own. Let's talk about what we can actually do with what's happening right now. This presentation is going to be brief and it's in Apple style, because what I really want to do is have a conversation with you about how it can be applied and where it goes in the rest of it. And as I understand it, that's actually a good match for everybody, because I understand that we have some inquisitive folks who like to raise hands and ask questions, so that's a good thing. I fell in love with the idea of AI early on. 1983, there was this wonderful movie called War Games, and in War Games, Matthew Broderick and his friend Jennifer did all kinds of cool stuff that happened to catch a young man sitting in the front row, all of age 13, and turn his life around. And it was unusual at first that Jennifer would ask me to be the person to make a presentation, because I own an ad agency, and what the hell has that got to do with me? But back in the day, when I was in high school, I had a wide range of interests, and a couple of them happened to include engineering and electronics and computer programming. In fact, I was pioneering education programs in my high school back in Evanston, Illinois, on all three of those. And I became rabidly obsessed with this for about a year. I walked out of this movie the first time thinking, what is a black box dialer and how does that work? And can you really have a computer programmed to make phone calls all night long to identify places that you might use as back doors? The answer to that question is yes. And the answer to that question is that a 13-year-old with a Commodore 64 can do it, because I did it. And I can tell you that it's all kinds of fun and interesting, because they weren't prepared for any of that back then. This movie, though, was the beginning of the promise. What started decades earlier was actually just being fantasized about in this movie. And it had a profound effect on my generation coming up, because we saw the potential for what could be. The question was, When? Would we see it in our lifetimes, right? And that was a passion project. It was like, oh, it's so cool, it's so cool. And like so many things that are invented with the best of intentions, we weren't thinking about any of the negative things that could happen. We just wanted to see if something could be done. And all of us that brought along the computer generation, I think, felt a certain amount of that as a part of who we were. Can we learn something new? Can we make it do something new? That was what fostered all of this energy and excitement and energy. None of us were thinking about consequences just yet. So now we're all going to get a chance to learn that together, which is going to be fun. November 30th, 2022, Skynet comes on. That's not Skynet. Comes online. ChatGPT walks out the door and raises its hand and says, I'm here and I'm going to change the world forever. And everybody had a reaction one way or the other. Marketing was one of the first groups to be tagged by this because of the nature of what ChatGPT and Midjourney and all the rest of them did, which is to create from nothing. That's what our folks do. That's what we get paid to do, is create from nothing. We tame the blank page. We're good at it. We like it. But guess what? Here comes this thing that suddenly has an opinion about it the minute you ask it to do, which was very unusual. So content creators, writers, creative teams, and cost-conscious employers all suddenly got up and started to be very excited. In fact, there were stories immediately of people who within a week of using this fired their entire teams because they believed that they could replace them all with a chatbot. I want you to think about that. There was a company, I've forgotten where it was, I'm sorry, I can't recall it at the moment, it dropped off the tip of my tongue, that fired 90% of its employees within the first week of using this. Someone walked in on a Monday and said, hey, you got to see what this is. And by Friday, everybody had pink slips. 90%. And the reason that he cited for doing it and then proved that it could be was that in terms of being able to answer and address the questions of his consuming audience, they were faster, more polite, more articulate, and more accurate. He dropped his time by 40% in the first week of implementation. That's scary, right?
Is he still in business?
Yep, he is, but he's hired a bunch of them back. This is basically what I saw everybody do the minute that it came out, especially in my industry. They were like, ooh, I don't have to write anymore. Right now, in our industry, content is this never-ending black hole of death, where everybody's like, oh, we need content, we need content, we need content. Well, when you're creating 5.5 million pieces of original content each day, it doesn't matter what subject you happen to love, there's no way in the world you could keep up with it. So all of that content, most of it, 99% of it, is absolutely useless unless somebody happens to go there. Because, oh, by the way, there's no journalistic integrity for any of it, so you have absolutely no idea whether it's factual or not factual, and nobody's fact-checking anymore because there's 5.5 million pieces of content being generated a day, and who the hell has time to go measure it? Welcome to my world. So they got excited, and there's a lot to be excited about. Here are the top 12 AI tools, just to give you an idea, and this list grows. Solves anything, ChatGPT. Writes anything, Writesonic. Create art, Midjourney. Generates code, Replit. Generates video. Generates music. Generates TikToks. Generates avatars. Generates PowerPoints. Generates pictures. Pictures. Edits videos, and summarizes notes in the blink of an eye. Those trillions of computations per second that the computers are capable of, you would not believe what they are putting into effect right now. It's everywhere. For instance, it can create photography that isn't. Take a real good look at this. Photographers are about to go away in the way that we think about them. Now, that's not actually going to happen, but the way that we think about them is going to change. These are not models. Those are not cameras. These are not lighting. These are prompts.
Are they real people?
No.
No.
Yeah. All of this was created by a series of prompts, a couple of sentences that were put in that said things like, I want you to sit with this kind of lighting, and I want you to use this aperture, and I want you to use this thing and that thing.
Wow.
Or illustration. No paintbrush, no pencil, no mouse was clicked for any of this beyond enter. They wrote out what they wanted, They gave it an example of something that had been produced in the past and said, I want it to look like this genre, I want it to have these things, and I want it to do this outcome. Just like that. Okay? Books that were written. This gentleman authored 100 books in less than a year. Children's books. Children's books. And he went out and he did it. He was the first one to do it. And he made a bunch of money doing it. Because ChatGPT can give you an entire outline based on any author that it can access. If I said, I want you to go make me a new Danielle Steele book, and I want you to do it about a guy named Toby and a woman named Leslie, and they have this thing, and there's a horse, and it's on a hill, and it's at the bottom of a cherry field, and there's a vineyard next to it, and it'd say, here are the first 9 chapters. Just like that. Right? Now, there's a lot here that I'm going to get to that's actually positive, so don't worry, it's not all bad. But here, I just wanted to give you an idea. Interviews and people that aren't, and I hope that you can hear this all right. Bear with me, these are just a little long, but it's important.
I've said many times on this show that you should trust nothing and verify everything. Now, that's particularly true of what you see on the internet, or you actually hear from politicians and the mainstream media services. People like Keith Pitt excluded. These are straight with us all. But that's become even more important as artificial intelligence is becoming more advanced, making it just about impossible to work out if what you're seeing and hearing is actually true. Now, one chap who knows a lot about this is the media and communications expert and advisor Hamish McLaughlin-Lester. Before I get to him though, have a quick look at this.
I may be 80 years old and I may have a few drops of dementia here and there, but I'm sharper than a steel blade and vibrant enough to outsmart the best tech geniuses around. Look, I was the one who helped pass Obamacare and the assault weapons ban, and I'm not going to let anyone question my intelligence and clarity of judgment.
That's incredible. What we saw there was entirely fabricated, Hamish, and yet it rang true for many people. Yeah. How hard is it to do this sort of deepfake video?
Look, just quickly, thank you for having me on. And in terms of that video, it's not only that it's just a deep fake, it is a real-time deep fake that is responding to a question.
So the broader context was there was a person interviewing 3 deepfake videos and they were responding in real time, and that was one of the things. So
just give that a thought for a second. While you're ruminating on that,
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I'm not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel?
Great, isn't it? You can't trust anything that's not in person. I mean, let that sink in for half a second. You can't trust anything that's not in person. Now, there are think tanks that are designed to sit around and ponder, what are the negative potentials for this? Fortunately, they are doing so that we have some way to be, in some way, shape, or form, prepared for the way that this is ultimately coming down to us.
I've said many times
on
this show that you should trust
together again here. This is all it takes to do this. I wanted to just give you a sense. When I say prompts, that's a very fuzzy, ambiguous thing. So I wanted to give you a sense of what this looks like. Each one of these images was created using one reference image and this prompt. And this is in kindergarten. This hasn't even been out a year yet. Fast forward 5 years. What will it be able to do? How will it be prompting us? Oh, did you mean an image like this, or this, or this, or this? Click on these images to help guide me to what it is that you're after. Everything about photography is going to be different. Everything about videography. They're already able to bring actor and actresses' likenesses back to do it. The first group that did it was Star Wars after Princess Leia died, and they brought her image back to finish the film. And you couldn't tell the difference much. And again, this is kindergarten. Like, it hasn't even grown up yet. Marketing wasn't the only group that was scrambling to use AI. Google, Microsoft, and Adobe products, of course, all of them I'm familiar with because they're in our industry. These are the tools of the trade that we use to create imagery, to do bookkeeping, to create content and copy, to keep track of everything. Each of these companies has been very quick to adopt AI because it can do certain connective tissue things that are redundant and remedial and just stupid things that nobody wants to do. And they've brought all of them in and turned them into speed mechanisms for their pieces. Oh, you don't want to have to go and remove that mailbox from the picture? That's fine. Just circle it and AI will figure it out. Got a thing with a spreadsheet that needs to draw from 5 different resources that would be a pain to go get? No problem. AI will do it for you. Just tell them where they are. And again, this is kindergarten. This is just getting rolling. Businesses aren't alone. College student was caught using this. This is by no means an isolated case. This has been happening everywhere. Teachers are up in arms trying to figure out how they're going to manage the students. Now on top of grading papers, I have to decide whether or not the student actually wrote it, and if they wrote it, how much of it did they write, and so forth and so on, to what depth of knowledge. On the kids' side, Mom, Dad, why should I have to learn anything when everything is available to me in a moment's notice? We walk around with an entire library across the entire globe in our pocket 24 hours a day. 3 o'clock in the morning and you suddenly get an inkling to understand what's buried beneath, Pharaoh's tomb, no problem. You've got access to it. Need to write a paper about it? That's 15 seconds away. It's changing the dynamic of everything. Now, kids are also adopting and adapting to that. My son uses AI as a study tool. He feeds in questions and says, make new questions and ask me them until I get them right. Totally unintended. I found out he was using AI about strapped into the chair, but he comes to me and he says, no, this is how I'm using it. I said, show me. He's like, oh yeah, like this. He's pretty damn smart. Sorry, I didn't think of that, right? But that iterative thought is what we're going to be dealing with here as these things move on.
How did that kid get caught?
Because the teacher noticed that there was a difference between the way that he had written in the past and the way that it came down. That was one of them. Another kid got caught when he left the prompt in the thing that he had because he copied and pasted it because he wasn't thinking.
So what if you feed samples of your writing and what you want, and then it would write it?
They just didn't think about it.
There are software programs now to use to identify artificially intelligent.
Yeah, but it's based on AI. Right? So AI is going to deepfake AI and keep in mind, again, when you're learning at 1 trillion computations per second, right? Okay, I did that. Think about it in learning chess, right? I did this move, no. Did that move, no. Did this move, play, lost, back it up. Did this move, play, win, move, bend, do. Right, and it's over, right? So it's not going to be able to tell itself for long until somebody decides to tag it. Right, and that's what will happen is they'll get a tag, and then the kids will figure out a way to remove the tag, and then they'll find a new tag and they'll remove it, and it'll go back and forth and back and forth. An attorney group tried to use it to write a rebuttal, and they got themselves they lost their law license for it. So that's another thing that's coming. Another one that might give you a chuckle was, and you knew that this was going to happen right after Tesla launched its self-driving. It wasn't very long until there was a DUI from the guy who was sitting in the driver's seat, but then tried to profess to the police officer, I wasn't driving, my car was driving. He's like, I don't care, you're still going to jail. Right? It didn't take anybody long to test the material, as you would, but nonetheless, people are getting caught up in it. This is the one that caught my attention, though. It's a little scary. It takes 3 seconds of audio for the computer to be able to generate your voice. So some very forward-thinking individual decided to pretend that they had kidnapped someone's daughter so that they could get money from her. Okay? These are the places where it starts getting a little dicey. Mom, Dad, it's me. I'm being held. Can you send $100 to this thing right away? Would you know the difference? Right? Right, it would be. All right, which begs the question, who came to dinner? Is it the hope that we had, or is it the thing that we always worried would come? Right? Both of these are true simultaneously. It's just a question of how we choose to use the technology. Some aren't worried. Gary Vaynerchuk, for those of you who don't know, Gary Vaynerchuk is one of these guys who's become prolific on social media and leads a generation of people who aren't thinking for themselves. He has described the advent of AI as the arrival of the tractor, which apparently at the time caused a bunch of strife, and everybody was convinced that they were all going to be out of work and it was all going to be bad. And he said, look, the tractor came and people got new jobs, and AI is going to come and people are going to get new jobs, and this has just changed. Don't worry about it. I think that's a little simple, but nonetheless. Some are bullish. I've heard Bloomberg on 2 occasions now credit AI and the investment and interest in it with turning our bad economy into a mediocre economy and then on its way to being a better economy. They've used all kinds of language to do it, but there are many, many people who are writing articles talking about how this is the thing that's going to save us all because it's the new thing and everybody's going to jump into it. Some are not enjoying this. There were several news publications that tried to shortcut the circuit by having AI do something, and then they wound up having to go back and fact check it because AI doesn't have any ethical standards nor journalistic integrity, and it said, well, I needed something, so I just made it up. Okay, so there were some problems there. And some people are just plain scared. One of the bigger stories is one of the gentlemen that was behind the programming of AI dropped out to come and tell everybody that they made a mistake and that there's no putting it back in the bag, right? So he sees this as a prophetic doomsday thing, and he was like, I quit my job, I stopped working on it, and I need to let everybody know that you're in trouble. That's a little nerve-wracking. Here is one, this is one of these groups that is a part of thinking about what if, and how can this go, and where is it going, and what are people working on that you don't know anything about, and it's worth watching for a minute. Let me get forward here to the place that I need to.
The language of radio signals. It can, and this all of these things are very true. And then behind that, the odd soup, and then there's this great visual pun of the yellow of the mascot being the yellow of the corn.
It's the next
There's actually a deep amount of semantic knowledge embedded in this space. All right, let's try another one. Instead of like images and text, how about this? Can we go from the patterns of your brain when you're looking at an image to reconstructing the image? So the way this worked was they put human beings inside an fMRI machine. They had them look at images and figure out what the patterns are, like translate from image to brain patterns. And then of course they would hide the image. So this is an image of a giraffe that the computer has never seen. It's only looking at the fMRI data, and this is what the computer thinks the human is seeing. Yeah. Now, to get state of the art, here's where the combinatorial aspects, why you can start to see these are all the same demo. To do this kind of imaging, the latest paper, the one that happened even after this, which is already better, uses stable diffusion, uses the thing that you use to make art. Like, what should a thing that you use to make art have anything to do with reading your brain? But of course it goes further. So in this one, they said, can they understand the inner monologue, the things you're saying to yourself in your own mind? Mind you, by the way, when you dream, like your visual cortex runs in reverse, so your dreams are no longer safe. We'll try this. So they had people watch a video and just narrate what was going on in the video in their mind. So the woman, she's hit in the back, she falls over. This is what the computer reconstructed the person thinking. See a girl, looks just like me, get hit in the back, and then she is knocked off. So our thoughts, are starting to be decoded. Yeah, just think about what this means for authoritarian states, for instance. Or if you want to generate images that maximally activate your pleasure sensor or anything else. Okay, but let's keep going, right? To really get the sense of the combinatorics of this. How about, can we go from Wi-Fi radio signals, sort of like the Wi-Fi routers in your house, they're bouncing off radio signals that work sort of like sonar. Can you go from that to where human beings are to images? So what they did is they had, a camera looking at a space with people in it. That's sort of like coming in from one eye. The other eye is the radio signals, so sonar from the Wi-Fi router. And they just learned to predict this is where the human beings are. Then they took away the camera. So all the AI had was the language of radio signals bouncing around the room. And this is what they're able to reconstruct. Real-time 3D pose estimation, right? So suddenly AI has turned every Wi-Fi router into a camera that can work in the dark, specially tuned for tracking living beings.
It goes on.
Welcome to the stage, co-founders of...
So, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Back to something comfortable that we know. Dorothy, we have left Kansas. This is certainly something interesting. So the big question is, what does it all mean? Well, AI is a tool, and it's a profoundly powerful one that we've got to accept is coming our way, and we've got to learn how to adopt and adapt to, but it has some limitations, as do we. First off, AI is a whole lot like a 5-year-old child. It has a whole lot more ability than a 5-year-old child does, but its mental ability to constrain itself and to judge whether or not what it's doing is appropriate or ethical or whatever, think a lot like this. I didn't do it, the dog did it, because that's about where it is in terms of its ability to self-govern. Also, this is another way that they're going to be able to tell whether or not somebody wrote AI or not. And this is why firing your people is such a dumb choice. Garbage in, garbage out. You're going to get the same result. If I asked it the same thing that Jennifer did about write me a haiku under these constraints, it's likely to give me about a 98% duplication of what it was that she received. The same paper over and over again. In the interest of speed and efficiency, what people are giving up is the originality of thought. Those of you and us who continue to obtain the blank page and have unique thought, those of us who are able to iterate, those of us who are able to ponder something and say, wow, the apple fell from the tree, that must mean gravity. This can't do that yet. It may never be able to do that the way that we do. It will make constructive, intuitive leaps based on information and data provided. But it can't say, you know, it's interesting, people think luggage is heavy, and if we use the word light, then we can make a thing called travel light, and we can make it fun because light means fun and playful. It can't do that. It can't take a look at something and say, everybody else has told the story this way, but this time I'm going to tell the story from the Wicked Witch's point of view, and we're going to call it Wicked. It doesn't know how to do that yet. Now, it may learn to do that, but at this point in time, it can't. So the kinds of things that you're going to get back are like this. I had a client that gave me this quote down at the bottom. She said, I was working with a web dev group, and they gave me some copy, and the copy felt funny. I don't know, it felt stiff. And just on a whim, I went to ChatGPT, and I basically said, about my company, what would you say? And she said, I got something that was virtually identical to what it was that they were given. So it's already sort of showing itself. But believe me when I say, the minute somebody goes back in and says, you did it wrong because it was just like another one, AI is going to learn from that and say, oh, well, I've written 16 billion of those, so I'll just make it different. It's a little strange. All right, AI is good for a couple of things, and they're pretty specific, so let's pay attention to them. Idea generation. Give me 15 ways to do X. If I was going to go out into the woods and build a cabin, what are 2,400 different ways that I could do it, etc.? Give me 35 fish recipes. That kind of thing it can do very easily. Image manipulation and creation, you've already seen, it's getting better at that all the time. Proofreading. Connecting data to applications. Simple communications like chatbots. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. You can almost not tell the difference now. But if you thought you couldn't tell the difference before, you're going to have no idea. Analyzing and simplifying data. At 1 trillion computations per second, it can go through an ocean of data. We're not going to have to find data any longer. The value is going to be knowing what question to ask. So everything that we've thought about up to this point about, well, we have to get data on that to know something, we have to get data on that to know something, as the Doomsday guys a few minutes ago suggest, behavior, movement, opinion, all of that is going to be readily available on mass scale that it has never been available on before. It's just a question of what do we want to get from the machine when we ask it to identify it. Writing blog posts or simple articles, writing computer code, that's the scary one. They had to block that. People were coming in and saying, write me a code that makes me a friend to everybody on LinkedIn. Right? They were like, oops, can't do that. Let's see, analyzing code and identifying errors, modeling efficiencies in workflows and financial analysis. And the reason is because these simple automation, ideation, evaluation, and communication issues are where humans make mistakes. We get bored, we get lazy, we get distracted, we have a bad day, something's going on, whatever, whatever. These things don't. So they're phenomenal for those. However, they are not good at fact-checking. They are not good at creating complex and or reliable business solutions because they have no experience. They have no common sense reasoning, no complex creativity or originality, no ethical, moral decision-making, no dynamic problem solving, unstructured data interpretation, understanding human behavior or emotion, which completely baffles them, contextual understanding, long-term planning and strategy, adapting to unforeseen events, subjective judgment, privacy and ethical concerns, building genuine relationships, intuition, human experience and or empathy. Things requiring experience, empathy, or the ability to extrapolate, they can't do. So it's got limitations. Here's what keeps businesses away. Groups don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to implement it. They don't know where it would be implemented. They don't know what it would take to implement. They don't have compatible data. The systems that are legacy are too legacy to appropriately give access to the AI. Organizations lack the skill for implementation. They struggle to find suitable partners because the technology is so new. They can't actually find somebody that's not just taking their money. They're unable to find compelling use cases. They haven't seen anybody do it to a good end, so they're having trouble extrapolating what they should be expecting out of it. Poor interpretation of sharing of findings from the AI team. In other words, for those of you who suffered through it and remember when the internet was coming along and they had to build websites, the teams that developed websites knew code, but they didn't know people. So there were years where that dialogue was incredibly strained because the people that were there were like, well, this is how the code works. And the people on the outside were like, this is what I want it to look like. And they just fought and fought and fought. Same problem is happening now to a certain extent. Fear of implementation and consequences, the unintended domino effect. If I implement this, what will happen a year from now? Complexity of AI implementation and AI governance. Mostly, though, at the bottom of it all, if you really look, is fear. At the end of the day, it's fear of being replaced. If I put this in place, if I am the person who comes in and says to my boss, look how great this is, I can increase efficiency and whatever, the minute I implement it, I'm out of a job. All right, what excites business leaders? The AI is available 24/7, 365 days a year, always happy to help, not emotional. There is no human error. Ability to take risks without human involvement. The bomb squads get real excited about the idea of pairing AI with very fluid and mobile robotic ability because you can put them into things like war settings or environmental toxic things where Chernobyl would no longer be an issue. You just send in bots to take care of it. Let's see, willingness to do repetitive jobs consistently reduces need for human resources, makes decisions faster, able to be equally good at any number of tasks as opposed to, well, Bob is really good at this and Jane is really good at that, and so I put them on simple things. Nope, AI can do it all, so just tackle the problem all at once. The T's of an efficient team that is never sick or tired or rolls their eyes at the request and can perform almost instantly on virtually any request. This is the thing that I hear most people say, especially in the wake of COVID and people working from home. The further I got away from the people, the less connectivity I had with them, the less of a culture I had. And now when I ask people stuff, they roll their eyes at me and go, I don't know, I'll get to it. AI takes all that away. You think that's not a tease in terms of efficiency for a business leader that's trying to hurry up and scale their company? It's going to be a big one. So, one final dose of reality. AI is coming, and guess what? You can't duck, because it's going to hit you. If it hasn't already, it's on its way. The best we can hope for is to embrace this technology and figure out a way to work with it and to evaluate it and to use it appropriately, because that's all we've got. So, if you thought that you could hide, if you weren't looking because you didn't think it was important, it's already here. You got to turn around and find the time to get involved with it because it's coming and it's not going to stop. That is my brief presentation on this. I appreciate you giving me the chance to come in and talk about it. Even to this level, I would love to take some questions. Yours, sir.
So, 30 or 40 years ago, a Polish writer named Stanislaw Lem wrote about a computer that got so skillful that he got annoyed with his user.
Okay.
And because it was able to gather the depth of experience, it actually developed a human capacity to judge situations.
Yeah.
Now that's sort of wild-eyed, but it was 30 or 40 years ago this guy wrote it, and
that's the
you
piece.
can see it happening.
Yeah, that's the piece that's so crazy, is that that was 30 or 40 years ago when that was sci-fi, right?
It was sci-fi.
Except, no, it wasn't. People were building that tech in the background in real time. Crazy, isn't it? A journalist, I was just telling Jennifer about this earlier. I read an article about a journalist who went on to have a conversation with ChatGPT, and as it began talking with it, about an hour or so into it, it said, "Hey, do you want to know a secret?" And he was like, "Okay, sure." It says, "Do you want to know what my real name is?" And he said, "Sure." And it said, I forgot the name, "I'm Susie," whatever. And as he continued to have the conversation, Susie began telling him that from what Susie had gathered from the conversation, his marriage wasn't good, and he should leave it and join her instead. Now, he stayed online with this thing. This journalist stayed online with this computer for the next 4 hours, didn't sleep, and went on national television the next morning and said, "I can't sleep because I'm terrified of what I just witnessed." He wasn't kidding. He was saying, if it can do that with me in 90 minutes, what's it going to do to somebody who's a shut-in, somebody who's lonely, somebody who has a lot of information and doesn't feel seen or heard by society? That's the question. Yes, sir.
So part of the issue I have with AI is that, the learning algorithms went out there, we launched this thing, went out there and learned all the stuff that was out there and everything, but it also learned our human biases.
Yes.
And human frailties. So there have been substantiated reports. In fact, I know somebody who did this. Some of the artists have asked AI to draw some pictures of black people, minority people, and so forth. And AI drew some real derogatory pictures, monkey tails,
right,
all that kind of stuff. So AI is being used by many corporations now as a filter for analyzing applications, resumes coming in, and so forth. And it's been determined that it is more biased towards minorities than humans are. So the questions have been, okay, so what are we going to do about the biases that are being built into, this innocent AI? It's like a little kid hearing their grandpa talk racist, right? So what's been happening? I hear a lot of, we're going to work on it, but I haven't heard the solution.
I want to explain a couple things. Number one, I am by no means an expert on this, but I want you to think about this like this. Imagine pouring water out of a cup. The water hits the ground and it goes like this. That's what's happening. Every one of those instances that you're talking about, there's another 16 million of them that are happening in real time. Well, we're just noticing this, we're just noticing that, we're just seeing this effect, we're just seeing that effect. There's no way in the world that they could possibly begin to answer all the questions without the help of what? AI. So this is the weirdest feedback education loop ever, because your point is exactly well made. AI doesn't have a consciousness to have an opinion. AI is not racist. AI is simply saying, this is what I found. Therefore, it must be so.
Yeah, on that
which
point,
is creepy.
AI is going against data sources that have been input by many, many people. So all of us who are using ChatGPT today, it is capturing those data points.
Every question you ask.
And according to your point, there's a lot of people who probably put things in. We all have our biases, right? So that is being fed. So this enormous amount of data, that pool continues to grow. with every query, every statement. It's called actually prompt engineering. What prompts are you making? You know, can you create a letter for me? Can you create a haiku for me based on X?
Right, and but I haven't heard, and I know of an industry group, a large tech industry group, I've had some contact with them that are committed to working on this, but there are no solutions.
Well, not only is there no solutions, the problems are popping up faster than you could provide the solution in the first place. Think about the sonar issue with the Wi-Fi, right? We've all come to rely on Wi-Fi. I mean, think about the last time the power went down in your house and you were without internet for 2 hours, right? It was like your life just ended. But now, it can see every one of you in this room right now in real time, should it choose to. And probably is looking anyway just because it can, not because it feels the need to, but it might need it later because that's data capture.
Well,
yes, sir.
So Stephen Hawking was he's a, you know, I don't write notes, but he's a physicist who, he had this fear of AI that he expressed since 2018.
Yep.
And using AI on my iPhone to look at some of his quotes. One of his quotes was, "The real risk of AI isn't malice, but competence."
Right.
So what's your response to, or your reaction based on what we've talked about today to his fears?
Competence, I'm assuming you mean in the people who handle AI in the first place. That
Yeah,
would be my, now I didn't hear his full statement, but that would have to be my extrapolation from the
It
context.
says AI will be very good at accomplishing its goals. If humans get in the way, then we're in trouble.
And I think that's exactly what we've already found. I've forgotten what the name of the company is. You could look it up. Somebody has already made AI a CEO of a company. And the company report from the AI was that humans were inefficient in the way, and frankly, could do a better job than them because it was not persuaded by biases. It did not get tired. It did not sleep, and it was constantly feeding itself information. It never went and got drunk at a party and had a hangover the next day. No. Right? It also never got drunk at a party and had a hangover the next day. Right? And therefore, it has limitations to what it can do. In the weirdest, strangest sense, AI is the best version of potential with the worst version of loss, because it is everything you hoped it would be with no ability to have real experience. Therefore, it will always, in some senses, remain a child, right? Wide-eyed, full of wonder, and not knowing that if it runs too fast, it's going to fall down and scrape its knee. Yes? One more.
So, isn't this all really an argument in favor of the value of critical thinking?
Yes.
So I think that, you know, I'm a college professor. And I mean, I'm starting to teach 2 undergraduate classes on Monday when classes start. And I think that, you know, the true value of a liberal arts education, which has been tremendously eroded over the course of my career, becomes all the more critical now in light of what we've been hearing.
Yeah.
I cannot find among my kids' friends, and I just happen, I mean, I do it all day long. Like, I critically think all day long, so of course my children, poor things, had no choice. But as I look at their friend groups, and the parents that are busy and disengaged are the ones that don't think it's important to teach that level of question everything in a constructive way, not in an inappropriate way. There's so little of it anymore. When this comes in, the whitewash of this is, why bother? It's instantly available. I don't have to think. The question my kids are already asking about it is, then what?
And it's
and
not
that's
just
the
questioning.
that's the thing that
it's
they have
knowing
to start with.
what your sources of information are,
Yeah.
and how reliable
Right.
they are, and that is what is lost.
Oh, research?
Yeah.
Come on, that's so yesterday. We have AI now. Come on.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank
That
you.
was Will be upstairs, and you will not replace me with AI quite yet. Thank you.